You make all the mistakes that everybody's made before if you do that. Most people, however, if they don't know much about sailboats, will be better off going to a good sailing school, and luckily there are many of them scattered about the country. Most of them offer both classroom and on-the-water instruction, because you have to understand something about the principles of sailing before you can learn to handle a boat competently out on the water. This series of programs will give you a head start on understanding how a sailboat behaves, and sometimes misbehaves. We'll tell you what you need to do to make it do what you want it to do, and we'll give you some advice on how to avoid Murphy's Law on the water. But remember, sailing is an art that requires seat-of-the-pants experience on the boat. You must go out there and practice a good bit before you can sail the boat with confidence. In this program, we're going to show you what the essential parts of the boat are. How to rig the boat, how to leave the mooring, how to steer and adjust the sails when you're out on the lake, and how to turn around. If that sounds like a lot, it is. But sailing is unlike some other sports, say tennis, where you can teach a stroke at a time. On the very first day you go out, you have to be able to do everything I've just mentioned. We'll be using these 24-foot rainbow sloops throughout the programs. They were originally designed for use at the Naval Academy, where they put first things first. Middies are taught to sail right away during plebe summer. They're good for new sailors because they're both stable and sensitive. They won't capsize, but they'll tell you if you've mishandled them badly. They're only one of many kinds of sailboats: windsurfers, sailing dinghies, cruising boats, catamarans, but the fundamentals of sailing are the same for all of them. You'll get used to the peculiarities of each kind of boat as you get experience in handling it. Before we begin, we must say a word or two about safety. Sailing can be one of the safest sports in the world as long as you take a few simple safety precautions. No matter how well you swim, you must equip your boat with approved life jackets, and you must insist that everybody fit one. There will be a number of conditions under which those life jackets should be worn: when the wind blows very hard, when a storm is approaching, when the water is very cold, and under many other circumstances. Be sure you have them on the boat. From time to time, we'll suggest some other safety precautions that will help you to enjoy this wonderful sport of sailing without taking any unnecessary risks. Now let's go on one of the boats for a closer look. Sailors are pretty fussy about their language, and for a good reason. When the wind blows hard, you have to do things in a hurry, and sometimes you have to do them right the first time. So nobody's going to ask you to pull on a rope. These aren't called ropes. Each one of them has its own name. And we'll teach you the names of all these lines, and you can learn some more about them from books and diagrams if you want. We're going to concentrate on a few of the essential parts of the boat right now. Just below us, for example, is the most important part underwater: a fixed, deep keel. Sailboats have to have something sticking down there to keep them from slipping sideways. Sometimes it's a fixed keel, like ours, sometimes a centerboard that drops through a slot in the hull, and various combinations of keel and centerboard. When the wind comes in at most angles over the side of the boat, the keel prevents sideways motion, called leeway, and forces the boat to go forward. The boat is a little bit like a piece of soap in the bathtub. When you put your foot on it, it shoots out in the only direction it can go. But in the process of converting sideways to forward motion, the keel or centerboard makes the boat tip or heel. So when people come to us and say they'd like to go sailing, but don't want the boat to tip at all, we have to tell them they can't have it both ways. On most points of sailing, the boat has to heel if it is going to go forward. To keep it from heeling too much, our boats have lead ballast built into the bottom of the keel. In boats without this ballast, you keep them from heeling over too far by perching on the high side, and also by letting the mainsail out so that it shakes or luffs when heavy gusts of wind hit the sails. The rudder under the hull is connected to a tiller in the cockpit. If you have never steered with a tiller before, you must remember that it works backwards. In other words, if you want the bow to go